Most people meet Middle-earth through the films, and honestly, that makes sense. The visuals are unforgettable. The misty mountains, Minas Tirith, the ring in the firelight, the Nazgul in the rain. But here's the thing. The movies didn't just adapt Tolkien. They quietly changed what Middle-earth feels like. Not in a "the films are wrong" way, in a much more interesting way. Because Tolkien wasn't writing an action fantasy. He was writing a world with memory, with time, with consequences. So today, we're exploring what the movies changed about Middle-earth and why Tolkien wrote those parts differently in the first place. And by the end, you'll notice something strange. The biggest changes aren't even about battles or characters. They're about how the world breathes.
Let's start with the most invisible change, and one of the most important: time. In the films, everything feels like it happens in one long sprint. The ring is found, the Nazgul arrive, the chase begins. It feels urgent from the first minute. In the books, time moves differently. There's a long stretch between Bilbo's party and Frodo leaving the Shire. Not hours, not days, years. And that changes everything. Because in Tolkien, evil doesn't always arrive as a marching army. Sometimes it arrives as a slow pressure, a tightening, a feeling that the world is subtly tilting. That slower pacing does something powerful. It makes the journey feel like a historical shift, not just an emergency. And here's a detail most movie-only viewers never notice. In the books, Frodo isn't a wide-eyed kid pulled into destiny. He's already lived a life. He has routines, relationships, quiet responsibilities, which makes the decision to leave heavier. So why did the films compress time? Because cinema needs momentum, but Tolkien wanted the opposite. He wanted you to feel the weight of years and the way dread can grow quietly. Middle-earth isn't a theme park ride. It's a world where history takes its time, and so does the shadow.
Now, let's talk about a character the films subtly reshape: Frodo. Movie Frodo is emotional, visibly overwhelmed, often collapsing under the ring's influence. It's effective on screen. It shows suffering instantly. Book Frodo is different. Not because he suffers less, but because he's written with a quieter kind of endurance. First, there's a practical difference people miss: his age. In the books, Frodo is 50 when he leaves the Shire. That's young for a hobbit, yes, but not immature. He's settled, thoughtful, more self-possessed. Second, the books give him more agency. Movie Frodo often feels like he's being carried forward by stronger personalities: Aragorn, Gandalf, even Sam. Book Frodo still needs help, absolutely, but he makes decisions constantly. And not just moral decisions, but tactical ones. He's the one who stands up to danger with a strange calm. He's the one who learns to speak with authority when needed. And yes, he struggles, but Tolkien frames it as inner erosion, not constant external breakdown. And this matters because Tolkien is doing something specific with Frodo. He's showing a kind of heroism that isn't flashy. A heroism of endurance, of continuing even when you're shrinking inside. The films translate that into visible suffering. The books translate it into a quieter transformation. Same burden, different language. And Tolkien's language is unsettling, because it suggests something the films only hint at: that you can win and still not come back whole.
In the films, the ring almost behaves like a horror object. It's dramatic, it pulses, it tempts loudly. People stare at it like it's calling their name. In the books, the ring is more subtle and more frightening. Because Tolkien doesn't treat it like a magical grenade, he treats it like a psychological mechanism. The ring tempts you with what you already want. For Boromir, power to protect. For Galadriel, the dream of a perfect realm. For Gandalf, the terrifying possibility of doing good through domination. The ring doesn't invent desire, it weaponizes what's already there. That's why some moments play differently between book and film. For example, the films make the ring feel like it's constantly screaming. In the books, it's more like a quiet persuasion that gets louder over time. It's the difference between a monster that attacks you and a thought you can't stop thinking. And here's a detail that becomes really important later. In the books, there are beings who don't react to the ring the way you'd expect, not because they're stronger, but because they're shaped differently inside. That's why the Tom Bombadil question exists at all, because Tolkien uses him to suggest something very strange. Power doesn't affect everyone equally. The ring struggles most against people who don't desire control. The films remove Bombadil for pacing, which makes sense, but you lose that philosophical contrast. Without him, the ring feels like universal mind control. With him, the ring feels like a test of what kind of being you are. And that's far more interesting and far more uncomfortable. One of the most under-discussed changes is how the films treat creatures. The movies often make creatures function like obstacles, spectacular, dangerous, defeated. But Tolkien's creatures often do something stranger. They exist outside the neat good versus evil chessboard. Take the Watcher in the water. In the films, it's a cool monster moment. In the books, it feels like a hint. The world contains ancient things that don't answer to Sauron. Same with wargs. In some film portrayals, they're basically attack animals. In Tolkien's writing, wargs are intelligent, hateful, strategic. They're not dogs of war. They're more like a hostile people. And then there are the creatures Tolkien barely explains at all. The nameless things under the world. The sense that there are older horrors below Moria that even Gandalf refuses to describe. That changes the cosmology of Middle-earth. It implies that Sauron isn't the only terror. He's just the terror that has a name, an army, and a plan. The films naturally focus the story on Sauron as the central threat. Tolkien hints at something broader. Middle-earth is ancient, and not everything in it is part of the war. Some things are just there, waiting. That makes the world feel less like a stage and more like a living ecosystem, where evil doesn't control everything, it merely exploits.
Now let's talk about places, because this is where Tolkien is quietly brutal. In the films, locations often feel like visual icons. Minas Tirith, Minas Morgul, Isengard, Mordor. In the books, locations feel like consequences. Minas Tirith isn't just impressive, it's tired, it's defensive, it's built to endure, and the people inside it feel like they've been living with pressure for generations. Minas Morgul isn't just an evil castle, it's a stolen city, once Minas Ithil, a Gondorian creation taken intact and corrupted over time. That detail changes the emotional flavor completely, because now it's not just darkness built a dark place, it's darkness can take what is beautiful and repurpose it. That's a very Tolkien kind of horror. And this is where the films, understandably, simplify. Cinema needs the geography to be readable. Good places, bad places, strongholds, enemy territory. But Tolkien writes like a historian of ruin. He wants you to feel that every stone has a before, that a city isn't just a set, it's a memory. Now we arrive at
the biggest emotional difference of all. The films end with triumph, closure, the crown, the farewell. The books don't end that way. Because Tolkien insists on something the films can't easily hold. You can defeat the Dark Lord and still lose parts of your world forever. In Tolkien, the Shire itself is not simply saved. It's changed, scarred. Not by distant war, but by the return of corruption to home. That part is often omitted in adaptations because it's difficult and it changes the tone. But Tolkien includes it to make a point. Evil isn't only over there. It can come back with you. It can wear familiar faces. And the cost of fighting it can follow you home. And Frodo's ending becomes the final proof of the book's philosophy. He succeeds. The ring is destroyed. The world is saved. And yet, he cannot fully heal within it. That's not a sad twist. It's Tolkien being honest about trauma and change and what it means to carry something too heavy for too long. The films show the victory. The books show the price.
So, what did the movies change about Middle-earth? They changed the tempo. They changed how power feels. They changed how creatures function in the world. They changed places from consequences to icons. And they changed the ending from aftermath into closure. Not because the films didn't understand Tolkien, but because film and literature speak differently. The films give you spectacle. Tolkien gives you history. The films give you battles. Tolkien gives you memory. And the reason Middle-earth still feels real is because Tolkien wrote it like a world that existed before the story and would continue to change after it. If you enjoyed this, follow the Tales of the One Ring. Tell me in the comments what change from book to film impacted you the most. And if you want, in the next long episode, we can go even deeper. Minas Tirith versus Minas Morgul as twin cities with opposite destinies, or the creatures Tolkien refused to explain. Until next time, stay curious and keep your feet on the road.